Uncharted has been one of, if not the biggest PlayStation IP since the PS3's inception, and considering its success over the years, despite Naughty Dog seemingly moving on from Nate and his adventures, it's unlikely Sony will put the series to rest for good. But where can it go next, and which developer could possibly take over such a critically acclaimed series? That's what we're going to be exploring today. With 2016's Uncharted 4, we saw the conclusion to Nate's story, giving us a glimpse 15 years-ish into the future, where he's finally settled down, had a child, and put all his treasure hunting days behind him, safely ruling out the return of Nate as a main character in any future games. So who could take over the role, and would it work? With the release of The Lost Legacy last year, featuring Chloe Fraser and Nadine Ross as essential characters, we've seen the Uncharted series can work really well without the iconic man himself making an appearance, and there are 3 potential directions I think the series could move in. The first is going down a similar path to The Lost Legacy, with a duo of protagonists, except this time making Sam and Sully the focus. At the end of 4, we see both discussing a business deal, hinting they'll be working together on some kind of dangerous adventure in the future that could be a great story to expand upon and delve into for Uncharted 5, giving us 2 characters we're already fond of and familiar with that players can easily gravitate towards. This is no doubt the least risky direction to go for this series, and one that I think fans would lap up. Next, the focus could shift away from the core original cast, focusing on Nathan and Elena's daughter, Cassie Drake, while in her 20s. During the epilogue of 4, we see Cassie, despite only being a young teenager, displaying interest in her parents' numerous journeys over the years, and isn't too much of a stretch of the imagination that she will grow up wanting to follow in their footsteps. This is a premise that may work well, but the developers would have to be careful not to make Cassie essentially just a blonde-haired copy of Lara Croft, something that may prove difficult to achieve. Cassie has also lived a far more sheltered life than Nate, who grew up as an orphan, so it remains to be seen whether she has the right personality for a lead role. Lastly, and potentially the most rewarding but also risky route, is completely moving away from any of the established characters in the series altogether, creating a whole new cast while still setting it within the same universe. Following this path of essentially a clean slate will give the developers complete creative freedom to go wherever they like without being restrained by already established characters that could lead to more interesting locations and stories. We've seen numerous games make drastic changes like this and excel, but we've also seen many completely flop, such as last year's Mass Effect Andromeda, so it's a direction that relies heavily on the development team's skill. Characters and story aside, the other issue was which developer could take over the Uncharted series and create a new game that will live up to the high expectations met by their previous games if Naughty Dog have indeed moved on for good. To this, I'm not sure I have a concrete answer. There are plenty of devs I think have the skill to take over the IP and do a fantastic job, such as Guerrilla Games, Sucker Punch, Santa Monica Studio, Insomniac Games, and Bend Studio, but all of these are currently tied up in creating titles for other series like Horizon Zero Dawn, Ghost of Tsushima, God of War, Spider-Man, and Days Gone. Interestingly, Bend Studio, the team responsible for developing the aforementioned Days Gone, has worked on an Uncharted game before, creating a surprisingly good Uncharted Golden Abyss for the PlayStation Vita in 2012, and if they weren't currently unavailable to take on another project, would arguably be the most natural fit. Of course, one other alternative Sony could resort to is simply forming a new studio altogether for the sole purpose of developing Uncharted 5, but this would involve some potential logistical issues and high setup costs. However, provided they get the right people on board, could be the best move. As usual, before I end the video, let me know your opinion. Do you think any of these proposed directions would work for the series, or do you think Uncharted should be left on a high and put to bed? I personally think if Sony are adamant they want the series to continue, they need to be really picky with where it goes next and who develops it, as not to tarnish what's been one of the best and most memorable series in the last decade. That's it for today. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon to receive notifications when future videos are posted. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.